Hello, I'm Zim. This is my channel where I talk about things because I can, and today I'm going to talk about a YouTube horror series I've been thinking about for years that everyone else seems to have forgotten about. The series in question is called Poradnik Uśmiechu, which translates to Smile Guide, and is from the YouTube channel Kraina Grzybów TV, which is Mushroomland TV. I wanted to make this video because even though I think analog horror and web horror in general has massively risen in popularity, I personally haven't seen a series as unique visually or conceptually as this one, in my opinion at least. Don't get me wrong, I love analog horror in general. Local 58, Gemini Home Entertainment, and Vitacanis are among my favourites, but Smile Guide still stands out to me because the conventions of the genre have changed so much since it was made. It actually predates Local 58, which ended up being more influential in the long run, most likely because it's English and this series is not. Smile Guide still fits some of the common criteria, which is why I'm still calling it analog horror, like the instruction manual type of format, grainy VHS texture, and visuals based on old cartoons or media. Think of it like a Tamagotchi original versus the Tamagotchi Pix. They're both Tamagotchis, but they just became different over time. I'm not trying to put any other series down, but rather bring new attention to this series because I love it very much. It's not unknown several of the episodes have well over 1 million views, it's just that it didn't seem to keep that relevance, which I think is a shame. I think part of the reason for that is that it's Polish and more artsy and surreal than other series tend to be, but it is fully subtitled, and if you like metaphorical stories which are more unnerving than outright scary, this could be one you'll enjoy. As usual, quick disclaimer, this series is a horror, so tread with caution on this video or if you decide to watch it. I will absolutely not be summarizing the whole thing, because I fear if I do that then you will not watch it, and you should, please. Later on I will talk about my interpretations, and that touches on topics such as drug use, overdoses, and sexual assault. Nothing too detailed, but they are mentioned, so keep them in mind and sit this one out if you need to. I also know that my thoughts aren't necessarily correct or concrete. I'm not trying to say that my interpretation is the right one that you have to agree with. I'm just making this to talk about a thing I like, okay? And with that being said, let's talk about one of the coolest, most bizarre series I've ever seen. Smile Guide is a short horror series which I would also consider a very impressive work of art. The first episode of Smile Guide was uploaded 12 years ago and was the first video on the Mushroomland TV channel. In total there are 6 episodes. 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6. There is an episode 3, but it isn't titled as such, nor is it in the playlist, as well as an epilogue called Ending of the Show. The runtime rounds up to around 40 minutes, so it's not an overly time-consuming watch. The series follows one main character, a girl called Agatha, but we also see recurring characters like Agatha's mother and Maggie the squirrel. When I went to go and rewatch the series, I noticed that the channel has still been active, but that the later videos haven't gained the same traction as the Smile Guide series' early episodes. Even later on in the Smile Guide series, the views kind of go down, which is a shame, but it's probably because there's been a couple years since the first one and the later ones. Smile Guide itself is presented like a set of tutorials, like a craft show, think Mr. Maker, real ones will get it. But each episode slowly becomes nonsensical and eerie as it goes on. When I first saw this series, I was quite young, but I already had a huge interest in horror media, so it really captivated me. I found it genuinely fascinating and still do to this day. There have been some explanation videos about it, but it seems after its initial hype in the 2010s, it didn't keep the attention that I think it deserves. It does have a community, but it doesn't get talked about in the wider sphere the same way that Local 58, Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, or Salad Fingers do, for example. The creator of Mushroomland TV is Victor Stribok, an artist, composer, and animator who regularly posts paintings and other works on social media, and I'd encourage you to check them out. Smile Guide wasn't a one-and-done project, he's created a lot of really cool and interesting stuff since. If I'm being honest, I just genuinely think it's awesome. Like, it's awesome. There's like nothing much else I can say. It's very well made and clearly had a lot of effort and care put into it. As someone who enjoys creating art and generally appreciates it, I am such a sucker for the visuals and music in a movie or series, and this one is such a treat, I promise. Although I keep calling it an analog horror, it is more focused on the artistic aspects than being scary. Creativity is so heavily incorporated into the storytelling. It's not like the story is set dressing, it's still very fleshed out, I just mean I think the visuals are of equal importance. A lot of other series rely on darkness, uncanny edited photos, text and still images, so on, and I'm not saying that's bad or anything, just that Smile Guide definitely reads more as a film project than, I don't know, the Mandela Catalogue, for example. It's also really brightly coloured, which is another reason why I think it stands out so much. Horror often relies on dark, shady imagery, but this show is highly saturated and takes more of its inspiration from old cartoons than nighttime footage. One specific aspect I really like is the text and graphics. It's stuff that isn't necessarily there to add to the story, but it makes everything feel a lot more tangible and fleshed out. There are many aspects in this series where the creator could have put less effort in or used pre-existing assets, but didn't. There's an incredibly high standard of quality across all of it. Another reason I never forgot about the series is also, as odd as it sounds, because I like that there's a heavy focus on female characters. I'm not trying to make any big point here about representation, but it is rare to find a web horror series with a predominantly female cast or a specific female main character. I'm not saying that makes any of the series bad, especially because a lot of them aren't character focused in general, it just makes me like this one a bit more personally. Something else I want to bring up that I'm really surprised I didn't know about prior to this, because I found this while researching, funnily enough, is that this series also has its own game. Hi, so this is Apple Escape. It's the game that goes along with the series. I know I sound like shit, it's because I'm recording the audio on my laptop, which does not have a microphone, and I don't have a microphone to connect to it. I record all of my audio for my videos in my phone's voice messages app. So yeah, I just thought it would be fun to go in blind with this because I actually discovered this midway through researching for this video. I didn't plan this beforehand. I just thought it looked really cool. It's available on itch.io, it's free but you can pay your own price, and it had some shots from the game which looked very aesthetically pleasing, so I thought I'd check it out. Okay, we're collecting 25 apples. That's my favourite number, by the way. Fun Zim fact, 25 is my favourite number. What does this say? Oh, poradnik uśmiechu. Makes sense. Oh! Okay. I landed on top of a mushroom. Cool. Ah, so beautiful. All you need to know is I eventually got the third apple. You don't need to know how, you don't need to know how many tries, okay? I got it, and that's what matters. Oh, okay, this is where, like, the mirrored bit is, alright. I don't know why it's, like, making the sound. I don't know what that's an indicator of. I'm scared. Okay. Okay, so what happened there is I lost, but all you need to know is that I got that third apple back. You know, for something called Smile Guide, I'm not doing much smiling. The music is really nice though. Like, I'm really enjoying the music, at least. Is there any visual indicator? Am I just blind? Am I just stupid? Is there like an actual visual indicator of like which tiles are safe and which aren't, and I'm just dumb? Jesus! I was gonna just stop recording until I managed to make my way to the fourth apple, but then I got jump scared again. So you're back with me for emotional support. That was weird. If you've ever seen those videos of the guy with like the tennis racket, and he's counting like, and then he like sniffs and he goes. Those videos, I'll pull one up. That's what this feels like. That's what this feels like. Okay, so I got to this mushroom, and it has a little triangle symbol thing. Except that I'm not smart. I don't know what that means. I've been at this for hours. I eventually got to the box thing that has a door thing. This is like a safe zone, and it says, what does it say? Just when you thought getting home can't get any easier. Here comes apfel. With just 25 of them, you can buy your way in at your local Agatha profit station. Too good to be true. Should okay. 25 apples. Don't mind if I do. I mean, I'm not a fan. So, to each their own, I guess. Okay. That's what I sound like when knee surgery is tomorrow. Okay. No, yeah, that was a shit show. That was an absolute shit show. It's okay. It's okay. We're all thinking it. We're all thinking it. In other news, I did find a full no commentary playthrough that I'll be linking in the description, as well as a map that I wish I found before starting, because I unfortunately barely scratched the surface of the game in the video that I recorded. I'm also going to put the description on screen because it is interesting, but I wasn't really sure how to read it, so there it is. Even though I was, like, horrendously bad at the game, I do still think it's really damn good. The music is awesome, and I love the grain over it all, and how the landscape is very reminiscent of Vaporwave. It's genuinely challenging, or was for me anyway, and I know some people prefer that in their games, so please play it and support the creator if you can. Okay, so circling back to the series now, this is definitely going to be the longest part of the video because I have a lot of thoughts about it. Admittedly, it's kind of like a fever dream. I won't pretend I understood it the first time I watched it, but I think it makes a lot more sense if you go in with the mentality that it's heavily metaphorical. Personally, I think that metaphor is tied to nostalgia and the loss of childhood innocence as you grow older, specifically girlhood. While I do have a specific interpretation of the story and timeline, I really don't want to talk about it chronologically because, as I said, this isn't supposed to be a summary. You're not supposed to treat this video as a substitute for watching the series. So this section might be somewhat disjointed, but that's purposeful. Like, if you've watched it, you will understand what I'm referring to. If you haven't, you won't, and that's why you should just go and watch it, you know? One of the more common interpretations that I've seen prior is that Agatha was raised by an overprotective mother and began to rebel in the form of drug use, hence it being called Mushroomland. The show references going to the land of mushrooms a lot, and the trippy, hazy visuals definitely fit well for this idea. The overprotective mother aspect can be seen both through her mother as an actual character constantly appearing throughout the narrative, but also the fact that Agatha has paper eyes over her real ones, as if she's being sheltered from seeing the real world in its entirety. Plus, the final episode is about how to raise a child, with heavy emphasis on behaving well so as not to end up unruly. Another layer to the interpretation that the series is about drugs is the idea that Agatha is in purgatory after having died from a drug overdose, or that the series is her final moments as her brain shuts down. This is implied through texts such as, "Your daughter is on the news, she's not breathing, her eyes are so soft," which are in different scenes scattered throughout. The epilogue episode, ending of the show, actually shows Agatha alone in a heavenly, beautiful place, completely different to the aesthetic of the wider show. This is a theory I remember seeing a long time ago when I first got into Smile Guide. It's not my own. My interpretation of some of the symbolism is different, but I do have a basis for my thoughts. I think the timeline doesn't begin with drugs necessarily, but rather early experiences of sexual attraction. The first episode is called How to Apple. Apples are the forbidden fruit. They represent original sin, and original sin would make sense for the first episode, kicking off the rest of the bad events to follow. In this episode, Agatha is violently coring an apple, jamming a knife repeatedly into it before eating it messily between cuts of notably phallic mushroom stalks. And there is also a brief shot of a diagram of a uterus, more specifically a diagram animated to show the process of menstruation, which is not a stretch to say is symbolic of Agatha getting her period or generally starting to grow up. It's also believed by some Christians that Eve's original sin is what caused people to suffer painful periods as a punishment for her actions, so this would again line up with the imagery of the apple. Agatha's exact age is up for debate. There is a scene where she appears to hold up 10 fingers when asked her age, but the actress does look a bit older, so I would say that, you know, she's between 10 and early teens, which is the age that this would happen. Agatha is also referred to throughout the series as Agatka, which is a diminutive nickname for Agatha. Polish diminutives are often used by friends, family, partners, and they convey different levels of affection and familiarity. The one my mother uses for me is actually the same suffix that you would use to convey smallness of something, which is interesting. I just think that's funny. But anyway, Agatha being referred to as Agatka throughout almost the entire series emphasizes her age, as well as the fact that her mother kind of has this, like, hold over the narrative. Because we don't know Agatha, but we still only know her as Agatka throughout the series, almost as if we're seeing her through her mother's eyes. I also use this as my reasoning for her age not being particularly clear, especially because of some of the behaviour she engages in later on. Basically, I think we're seeing her as younger than she is because her mother sees her that way. The episodes get darker as they progress, which I think is representative of Agatha growing increasingly self-destructive or reckless in acts of rebellion against her mother, or just trying to grow up too fast, acting too mature for her age, with drugs perhaps being part of this. Agatha's mother mentions that Agatha had friends from school telling her she'll go to the land of mushrooms, and that it's easier to get there but it's harder to escape. We also see her engage in looking at authentic mushroom light with a consistently antagonistic character called Maggie the Squirrel. I see this as Agatha getting into the wrong crowd. She's doing substances with or around untrustworthy people. Eventually, a seemingly adult male character covered in denim appears, and this character puts things in Agatha's food, moves her arms around like a puppet, and consistently looms over her. You can take this as a portrayal of Agatha being drugged or perhaps pressured into doing drugs, but you could also see it as a depiction of sexual assault, grooming, etc. There are so many visuals which point to the idea of these encounters generally across the series. With the jeans man, he feeds her a ripped up strip of denim, which is also accompanied by a shot of jeans being torn. I know it sounds stupid, but jeans sounds the same as jeans. I don't think it's a stretch to see this as symbolic of involuntary insemination. Hi, I misremembered this bit. It's not food that he puts the denim in, it's hair. It's chopped up hair in a bowl being stirred with a spoon, which does at some point go over a shot of a mouth, which I think is why I was misremembering it as being food and being fed to her. It isn't, it's hair, and the episode is How to Your Hair, so that makes sense. The thing is, it still doesn't change my opinion on what it could symbolize, because the jeans guy says stuff like, "I'll be in your hair forever," which can be symbolic of being left with trauma following assault, or being left with the responsibility to care for a child that you did not want. There are also scenes of him hanging out with another young girl, and there's a scene where he laughs, and it's a very deep, definitely adult male voice. I do think that he is supposed to be predatory in one way or another. There's also a scene of Agatha appearing to die and be replaced by a version of herself in makeup who blows a kiss to the camera. This could just be a visual metaphor for going from a girl to a woman, but it could also represent Agatha beginning to engage in adult activities at a younger age than she should, either to spite her mother or because she doesn't know better and has been taken advantage of. The last episode is an instructional guide about raising a child, where Agatha is parenting a doll, but there are scenes where her and the doll switch places, as well as some other weird visuals where Agatha is questioning her role, and her mother appears while Agatha calls out to her at some point in this episode. My first thoughts about it were that it could be representation of a teenage pregnancy, where Agatha is realizing she is still a child herself and cannot do this. Or it could symbolize her letting go of her childhood as she grows up, separating her younger self from her current self and looking back on how she was raised. There are a lot of ways you can look at this series and a lot of subjects it can tie to. You can piece the story together in a lot of ways, the same way you mix a bunch of different sodas at the cinema drinks dispenser but still end up with something vaguely sweet and fruity. Since this was a rewatch for me, it was easy to see certain visuals and link them to thoughts I already had in the back of my mind. Some of it might seem like a reach, but you don't have to agree, nor do you have to think anything I'm saying makes sense. Smile Guide is unnerving and visually very impressive no matter what, and there is no single correct reading. In fact, if you decide to watch it, or already have, I would really love to hear your theories or ideas in the comments. My conclusion is watch the series and play the game. That's basically it. What else can I say? The series is considered a Polish cult classic and has a following, don't get me wrong, but I'd really like to see that following grow. If you aren't Polish but you like surreal horror and metaphorical artsy stuff, please still give it a watch. It's absolutely worth it. Since I didn't get very far in the game, unfortunately, I can't really analyze it in relation to the series, but I might make a separate video on that if anyone is interested, because I definitely plan to play it again all the way through now that I actually know what to do. Usually while I'm here doing the conclusion bit, I also say a vague follow my Instagram, but I actually do want you to follow my Instagram. If I hit 1k, I can start a broadcast channel, which I will literally only be using to send bug pictures. So I don't know, if you like bug pictures, follow my Instagram so I can send them in a broadcast channel eventually instead of cluttering my actual account or my posts on here, thank you. I know this video, all in all, was probably more fun for me than it was for you, unless you have prior interest in the series, but either way, consider subscribing if you enjoyed it, maybe like, if you're feeling extra super generous, and if you didn't, I don't know, that's like low-key not really my problem. But thanks for watching anyway, love you, bye bye, I just lost the game.